what does it mean to be Punjabi Sikh? How does this identity relate to the category of American, and is that identity one that's fully formed? The history of Punjabi Sikh immigration is closely interwoven in the era of British occupation of India and Punjab. And from then on, the diasporic Punjaban, the diasporic Sikh, has had to reconcile their identity, culture, tradition, interactions, and experience through the paradigms of the West, of oppression, struggle, survival, status. The immigrant story is a powerful one, but the story of their descendants, of the first and second generation diasporic Punjaban Sikhs, is one that commands a serious presence on the lived experiences of parents and children, as well as on the future of the culture as it pertains to their milieu. Not only in the case of intercultural encounters, but also in the case of intracultural encounters. My name is Sukhpal Bowler. This is the Gateway to Merced project on Punjabi Sikh American youth. My principal investigator is Dr. Jason Beaster Jones, and I'm here with you, Paige. The Gateway to Merced project aims to redefine perceptions of Merced County, where its directionality transcends the category of transitory into the categories of intentional, cultural, diverse, and essential as the space relates to the history and present of California's Central Valley. Through the collection and analysis of oral histories of youth Punjabi Sikh American residents of Livingston, California, through guided interviews, video, and audio recording, the research project inquired into the gap between historical records of the Punjabi Sikh diaspora in California, as well as their lived experiences, ultimately considering diasporic development, identity, and future. The interviews were conducted on Punjabi Sikh American youth aged 18 to 25 from Livingston, California. Overall, the project's approach extends beyond a historical paradigm into one of phenomenological inquiry and analysis, which I consider to be an essential and underlooked aspect in understanding history as constituted by historical agents of change. Overall, the interviews showcase the conscientization of the Punjabi Sikh American youth milieu, wherein themes such as cultural preservation or re-immersion through language and the prevalence and upkeep of patriarchal paradigms of oppression were prominently salient. And so we can say that the Punjabi Sikh American youth demographic constitutes an essential building block of the community, and the future movements indicate a cultural shift towards equality, feminism, and ancestral knowing. The research methodology employed can be summated into three distinct steps: outreach and prep, interviews through Zoom, and transcription and analysis. In step one, we reached out through Jakara, a Sikh youth organization, to find willing participants from Livingston, California. We then created a curated questionnaire for the Punjabi Sikh American youth living in Livingston. In step two, 5 interviews were conducted via Zoom, averaging a time of about 60 minutes. In step 3, the recorded interviews were uploaded to Otter AI, an online transcription software that allows for record keeping and further thematic analysis and reflection. Focusing on our two main themes, that of cultural preservation and the interactions between feminism and patriarchal values, the interviews indicated that progress in both is capable and in fact underway when we consider the sentiments expressed by the participants. Speaking from my experience as a Punjabi Sikh American youth, the presence of patriarchal values and the male-dominated social spheres seemed fundamentally indissoluble with the culture at large. That is, Punjabi culture and patriarchy seem to go hand in hand. However, it's more accurate to diagnose the indissolubility as a particular characteristic of the culture as it was. And culture is something that I would say is an emergent quality of a sum of constitutive agents representing a particular relationality to the milieu they are inextricably subsumed within. That is, it's contextual, it's relational. And so, as it relates to the culture as it was, it relates to the culture as it is now. For as milieus are modular, dynamic, and breathing, so too are the cultures they are in relation with. For one participant, she expressed, "I have been trying to educate myself because I think knowing about my own heritage and my own culture is important. It becomes a question of identity, a statement of agency, and a promise to reinvent or reconstitute what the culture can be. It's an air of hope. It's an invocation of change." And so this reconstitution, I believe, is found in the intersection between the culture as it has been and the consciousness of the youth. For the same participant, patriarchal values in the Punjabi community, but also in Western culture, are ultimately dehumanizing. She noted that in Punjabi culture, we were seen as we have to be submissive. If you are loud and outspoken, you're seen as aggressive. It's like there's something wrong with you. For another pair of participants, issues such as caste, gender inequality, and alcohol usage were considered prominent attributes of Punjabi culture. However, neither of those three attributes are part of Sikh culture. And within the household, it's common to hear that the mother, or either the mother and the daughter, were expected to cook, clean, and serve food for and to the men of the household. In an instance of hegemonic oppression, one of the cousins of one of the women participants offered to help clean the dishes at home. And they had their family over, and for her mother, doing so was something that was considered to be wrong. That it was not allowed for a man in the family, a boy in the family, to help with something as simple as cleaning the dishes. And so when we think about these interactions between the older and the younger generation, what assures the possibility for a significant change within the culture is that the feminist critique is coming from, the feminist critique of an inertially patriarchal culture is coming from within the community. Instead of a wholesale internalization of patriarchal values that we see in the men and women of older generations, there is resistance and there is possibility in the consciousness of the youth. Furthermore, within Sikh culture, its ostensibly antithetical positionality to traits consistent with Punjabi culture as it is shows that there is a significant locus of change waiting to be implemented. And so I've been bringing up this difference between Punjabi culture and Sikh culture. Typically, it's considered that Punjabi culture and Sikh culture are one and the same, an assumption that comes from the fact that most Punjabins are Sikh and most Sikhs are Punjabi. However, to be Punjaban is to be part of a particular culture, and to be Sikh is to be part of a particular religion, and those are not necessarily the same. Ultimately, for some in the Punjabi Sikh American youth demographic, greater cultural awareness, an uptake and injection of feminist and Sikh values, and an emphasis on equality and individuality will become key attributes used to describe the culture. One hopes that this change is efficacious and willing to come to fruition. Now, the research, it was limited in scope. However, it was qualitatively dense. It provided a rough estimate of the temperature of the community in Livingston, and it must be noted that the sentiments expressed are not indicative of any kind of objective truth or broad generalization. However, these sentiments are real, and they're coming from the lived experiences of those immersed in their culture. Ideally, more interviews will be conducted and the questionnaire amended so as to eliminate or reduce possible biases and confounds that were present. So I want to thank the Gateway to Merced team. I want to thank Private Investigator, Principal Investigator, Dr. Jason Beester-Jones, UROC, and UROC H for helping this come to fruition. Thank you all.